Welcome to the Comedy Reset Spotlight. This is the place to be if you want to hear from some of the most innovative and exciting comedy creators from around the globe. On this podcast, you'll hear from a variety of guests who are pushing the boundaries of what comedy can be. If you're looking for fresh perspectives and new ideas, this is the podcast for you.
Episode 9. Fort Collins, Colorado comedian, Geoff Gundy.
When did you first start doing stand-up comedy?
I started doing stand-up comedy in the summer of 2009, but what made that hard was that I had a morning radio show along with a 30-minute commute and also twin babies. A third one came a couple of years later, so getting out at night and performing was difficult. Although I did it for a while, I got out, back in. I was out more than in by far all these years. Now, I have no excuses because one of my other problems was I hated the dynamics of the open mic. I didn't really get it. And after taking a class with Judy Carter and Dean Lewis online early 2021, I had no excuses, and I've been in since April of last year.
What made you want to become a stand-up comedian?
Well, the seed was planted when I was a kid in the 80s. I watched my first George Carlin special at age 7, and it went from there. As I went through life, just working crap jobs and just experiencing the ups and downs of life, I noticed that people, oftentimes ones who really weren't even that great of friends of mine, would tell me that I was funny, I should be a comedian, and a passion started to build as I went through life. And now I just feel like I can't help myself because it feels so good to put a smile on people's faces, to surprise them with a laugh. It's like handing somebody a cupcake or some other great surprise when you make somebody have an unexpected laugh.
Who were some of your influences?
HBO, the political satire show, not necessarily the news. One Night Stand, that comedy series. My family, who it was so fun when I make them nearly pee their pants. But the real influence to me was just the stupidity of life. My parents divorced when I was 5. I didn't really gel with my stepdad. We were broke. I was fat. We now lived in a town of 500 in Nebraska and had the ugliest car and house in town. I was the only kid in my school who didn't go to church or play sports, and everybody knew it. The dumb things my teachers would say got me into the most trouble and made me the best friends. Stand-up influences, Louis Anderson would be the most notable one for me.
What was your first time on stage like?
Well, I honestly don't remember my first time on stage very well, not because I was intoxicated, although I'm sure I was. It was a long time ago, like I said earlier, in 2009. I do remember getting a lot of love from the other comics and getting some laughs. I don't know if I really deserved the laughs. I was just starting to read my very first comedy book and learning some actual joke structure. I'm pretty sure I really sucked, but it's great how a lot of times you get a lot of love if they know it's your first time on stage.
What's your favorite joke?
Well, I'm not sure if you mean a favorite joke that I wrote or that somebody else wrote, so I'll do one of each. Well, I have this little series sort of thing where I'm like, I have 3 daughters, one's 12, the others are 14-year-old twins. And so I mainly came here tonight just to hear my own voice for a change. Of course, now you're hearing this voice and you're like, is this guy here to even do comedy or kick off 40 minutes of nonstop classic rock? Well, I am a radio DJ. It's just a little part-time gig from home, though. What I do is I record a rock overnight show for small towns in the Midwest, and so my target audience is drunk drivers. And I like to mess with them, too. All right, that was Pantera. Oh, look in your mirror. I think it's a cop. Just messing with you, buddy. Hey, here's 5 Finger Death Punch. Okay, so there's that one. And, I like a lot of Louis C.K., a lot of Sebastian Maniscalco, but my favorite joke of somebody else's right now is actually a local comedian here in Fort Collins, Colorado, by the name of Luke Gaston, because I can relate so much to this. He says, I have a media arts degree, which, whoops.
What's the worst heckler experience you've ever had?
Well, I've been pretty fortunate so far with the heckler thing, but I can't remember the night, the place, but there was a time months back that there was a guy in the audience who just didn't understand that this was not an interactive show. I don't know if the comic before me maybe led them to think that. It's blurry, but I know that at some point I'm like, all right, that sounds good. Hey, you want to keep talking? Sign up on the sheet there, just like I did, and you can also get 3 minutes on stage.
What's the best gig you've ever had?
Well, I'll go with something recent because it seems to get better and better this year. Yay. A couple of weeks ago, I took a host spot at a place called Rise Comedy. That is a comedy club and also a place for comedy classes in Denver. I have taken their first and second level classes, and now if I just ring them up, message them, whatever, I can get in there, do a guest spot or a host spot. The host thing was so much fun. I love being responsible for keeping the energy up in the room, also getting to do my own stuff and then keeping it moving for the night. And if I may do a two-parter, the other is a lot like that, only it's my own open mic. That is one of only two here in Fort Collins, Colorado, because the rest are down in Denver. The one that isn't mine, you sometimes wait a couple of hours to get on stage and just do a couple of minutes because it's a legit comedy club, but it's such an awesome experience. Mine, though, it's a laid-back brewery sort of thing. You get 6-7 minutes, and the whole thing's over in an hour and a half or so, and people are raving about that, so I always look forward to it.
What's the worst gig you've ever had?
That was back on Halloween night. There's this thing called Shtick or Treat at the local comedy club that is fun, but I just don't think it went well for me. It's a deal where you do your jokes, but as a famous comedian. I got 2 minutes as George Carlin. I tried to make my hair all gray, and I think it went okay for the first joke, and after that, it was just weird. I'll probably do it again next year.
How do you deal with stage fright?
Be prepared. Know my jokes. Get centered before I go up there. Just relax completely and remember that I'm excited to be there and that I belong on that stage. You know, comedian Kyle Cease said that really stage fright is selfishness because we're worried about ourselves and whether or not they'll like us, when really it should be more about giving something to the audience, maybe even transforming their day. That's always stuck with me. The part I'm always trying to put up front, though, first thing, most important, have fun. If you're not having fun, neither is anybody else in the room. Like, you could forget your whole set, but be up there having fun and still have a great set. But you can perfect your entire thing, not stutter, not get one word out of place, but you're tense or something else is on your mind. It's not going to go so well from what I've seen. And remember, the audience is rooting for you from the very get-go. They want you to win up there. One last thing, right before I go up, I try to think of something that puts me in my comedic zone. Lately, it's been thinking of comedian Sam Talent, who does an impersonation of Ray Romano taking anal. Or, since I'm a dad, Louis C.K., when he says how sometimes it's hard not to curse around your daughters. I was giving her a bowl of soup, and I said, hey, here's your fucking soup. You could understand how that situation would be stressful.
What was the most unexpected response you've ever gotten to one of your jokes?
It had to be when I was acting out my racist cousin who lives in the Midwest, and I still don't know for sure exactly where I went wrong. I just kind of have decided that as a white male, probably I should stay away from race. But perhaps I went on way too long with her evil words in her voice. I left the stage to a silent room.
How do you prepare for a show?
Well, if it's an open mic, I try to do at least 50% new material because why not? If it's a gig, I of course put my funniest bits at the open and close. The rest of the jokes are ones that have gotten the best laughs, ones that I feel the most strongly about, or both. I try to rehearse it all at least 10 times to get it into muscle memory. I video myself, I watch it back, however much I have time to do. If I can make time, I handwrite everything out, not only to help with memorization, but also handwriting tends to give me lots of ideas on how better to deliver my material. I recently started performing only while sober. I know everybody has their personal preference on this, but for me, even one sip or being high immediately puts me in off work mode. And even though my heart is totally in it, I'm not my best then. Sometimes I think I'm better than I am at that time, in fact. Plus, it feels good to reward myself when I actually am off work and I know that I offered my best, if I do still want that beer or whatever. Definitely listen to some great professional stand-up comedy before going up. Get that in your head. It gets you in that zone. If it's a 10-minute set, for example, I prepare more like 8.5 to 9 so that I'm sure not to go over and I'm respectful of everybody's time. I make sure that I'm staying in communication with the show booker. Message them. Hey, I'll be there at 6:30. See you then. Can't wait. That way they know they don't have to worry about me and things are just going that much more smoothly. And all this preparation puts me in a comfortable place where now I'm confident and I can cut loose and have fun with the audience.
What's the best advice you've ever been given about stand-up comedy?
Be yourself. Relax. Have fun. I'm telling those things to myself literally right now. I came from a little bit of an old school radio background where that never seemed to be an option. I mean, if you can have fun reading the cards that they tell you to read when they say to read them and doing it in some special voice and making sure you don't go more than this time and so forth, it's really hard to turn that around and not try to sound like something rather than just being you.
What's the worst advice you've ever been given about stand-up comedy?
It's honestly hard to think of any bad advice that I've been given as a comic. I'm pretty discerning as to who I listen to. I have certain people that I follow. Local instructor, Christy Buckley in Denver. There's Jerry Corley. I'm not sure if he's out of California or New York, but I've really been latching on to some of his instruction and things. Judy Carter, Dean Lewis. But you asked about the worst advice. I think it's when another open mic comic tells me that they hate one of my jokes when they are struggling to get laughs too. Like, I'll listen to anybody because maybe they know something I don't, but worry about yourself, man. I guess that's it. It's been mostly good advice.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about stand-up comedy?
That it's not a real job. Yeah, good luck with life and enjoy working at the call center.
What do you believe is the key to success in stand-up comedy?
Well, I've recently been struggling with how I will know when I've succeeded. I've learned that, at least for me, it's when you're enjoying it. It doesn't matter if it's your first week doing open mics or if you have a Netflix special and you're on a world tour. Are you enjoying yourself? Do you like what's happening? Do you look forward to the next little thing or big thing you're going to be doing? To me, that's success. And enjoying it and giving to others through that. Does it get any better? I don't think so.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle that stand-up comedians face?
Well, if I had to pick one on behalf of all stand-up comedians, I'd maybe have to say competition, especially if you are a middle-aged white male. Yeah, there's competition. Sure, you're your own person, but how are you making yourself different?
What do you think sets stand-up comedy apart from other forms of comedy?
No instruments to play, no partners on stage to bail you out, at least in most circumstances. You have to create everything and be everything. Whereas sketch and team comedy and sitcoms and late night and theater, well, you've got a lot else to rely on. There are others, there's props, etc. You're really running your own small business too with stand-up. So unless you have a really good agent or somebody else to do all the humdrum office parts, because those exist, You have to have a sharp left and right brain both, and that's a big challenge for almost anybody. A lot of people write, but they don't perform, or the other way around, or you write and perform well, but you suck at promoting yourself on social media, or reaching out to people who book shows, or you're just not good at working with other people effectively in general. It's best if you can handle it all, and it's a tough balance for sure, but it's very, very possible.
What are the benefits of stand-up comedy?
You make people laugh. That's powerful. Think about it. There are folks who just suddenly lost a family member. There's the threat of nuclear Armageddon. They just quit making your favorite microbrew. For all you know, you prevented a suicide today. It's therapy on and off stage for you too. Doing stand-up has been teaching me how to not take myself so seriously, which is something I wish I could have learned decades ago and will always be a process. When you do stand-up, you have no choice but to just accept yourself because it's there and everybody sees it. You also kind of have to accept the way everything around you looks, or you're just not really going to have a good time. You might even get out of comedy. It's also a great way to resolve all the garbage that's weighed on you since birth. Turn it into the joke that it is and release it to the universe. Sort of like a caterpillar that you just turned into a butterfly. Nothing against caterpillars. They're cute.
What's your process for writing jokes?
Well, I get an idea for a premise from something that I found absurd in my day, maybe from a journal, or from writing something unique about myself. Those are good sources of premises. Such and such is hard, it's weird, it's scary, it's stupid, because. And there's your premise. Then, for me, it happens a lot in quotations. Because we hear words that are stupid a lot in life. So I like to follow it up with what I would say back to that person, that commercial, that sign, wherever the words came from, if I didn't care about hurting anybody's feelings or breaking any rules. That's one of like 10 examples of joke writing how-to, of course, but I currently focus on the things that set me apart from everyone else. I like the question, what are you an expert on? What do you own like nobody else?
What's the most important thing for a stand-up comedian to remember?
A lot of folks might disagree with me here, but I think it just ultimately doesn't matter. Don't take it seriously. Again, I'm telling this to myself as I say it into this microphone. I mean, you may never get anywhere. You may be the next Rodney Dangerfield. But either way, you're here today and gone tomorrow. So isn't it really just about making it matter for you now, being happy with how you spent your day? Success.
What do you think are the best techniques for dealing with hecklers?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have much experience in this yet, but I have seen comedians handle them very well by being honest. Louis Anderson at a packed Comedy Works in Denver said something like, hey, I'm just really trying to have fun tonight and you're getting in the way of my show. I don't think the dude was expecting that. Either way, it worked. I think it's Tig Notaro. I'm not sure who it is now. Somebody was like, just being honest with them here again. You know, I'm not for everybody. You know, I'm sorry you feel that way. Maybe don't overthink it. Now, if that stuff all seems boring, well, maybe look up Louis C.K.'s recipe for handling a heckler.
What do you think are the biggest mistakes that stand-up comedians make?
Being ill-prepared, thinking you're going to go on stage and just be automatically funny. Also, not going after corporate work. If you want money and you're willing to work clean during the day, get a hold of Toastmasters, Rotary Clubs, your local list of associations, and make yourself some handsome money. Not a lot of comics are doing that, so I hear. I myself am working on getting a clean tape that is marketable for that sort of thing. So I'm not trying to preach from high atop a mountain or anything like that. I have hopes for it, though, for going that direction with the corporate thing. Ultimately, just being lazy about going after work. Also, trying to be funny rather than real. The real part connects with people. Trying to be anything does not.
What is the best way to learn stand-up comedy?
Watch some professional stand-up comics who really resonate with you, people you just love. Also, nothing wrong with taking a class. Why not learn from somebody who's been where you are and or are trying to be?
What do you think is the best way to improve as a stand-up comedian?
This one's painful. Record your sets, watch them back, and take notes. I hate it, but it'll help you improve.
What has stand-up comedy taught you about yourself?
That I'm really not that different from other people. We're not as unique as we think we are in that we can do this. You might think, oh, I can't be a comic because I'm too old, too young, I'm too weird, this, that. No, that's your material. Whatever you're to anything, that's your story. That's what sets you apart. Yeah.
What motivates you to keep performing stand-up comedy?
Me, personally, well, I am a very expressive person. I'll just be up front. I have to say things whether somebody's even in the room or not. So what? I'm weird. It's my latest platform to express myself. I tried it for years in radio, and that became less and less okay. Facebook used to be a cool place. Now it's scary and annoying. I'm finally here. I'm glad that all those other layers were peeled away. It's just something I have to do.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about doing stand-up comedy?
Just do it. Because if you think that maybe you should, there's a reason for it. You'll find out what it is later.
Is there anything you'd like to add that we did not cover?
I really don't think that there is. I can say that it's helped me a lot just to be able to talk about where I'm at. I don't feel much qualified to do so since I've only been consistently performing stand-up in my kind of small market town for a year and a half. But I do think that much like when you're training somebody at a job, talking about your experiences helps you be better. And if it helps somebody else be better or be inspired, well, all the better.
I've been your host, Rob Chaffee. Don't forget to laugh today. It's good for you. Comedy Reset Spotlight is a podcast that brings you today's freshest and funniest comedy creators. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to hear more.